Welcome to First Page Fridays. I'm April Davila for Sit Right Here. If you don't know me, I am a novelist and a mindset coach. I help aspiring authors write more and suffer less. And today we're going to look at somebody's first page. Could be a short story. Usually it's a novel. And we're going to just edit it. I'm going to read it through. I haven't even looked at it yet. And then, so you must forgive me on all the pronunciations and things sometimes, especially if it's sci-fi or fantasy, it can get a little tricky. But I'll read it through and then we'll start back up at the top and I'll just jump into editing as if I were working on a client's project, but narrating my thoughts as I go so that we can all kind of learn as we work through the project together. So I will shrink myself down. I want to say a big thank you to whoever did submit this. We keep it anonymous, so I don't know who it is, but I do appreciate you sending your page. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Lost dog, the flyer read, an excuse, a disguise, a flimsy shield that Sam gripped tightly as if it could protect her from what really prowled the streets. The ground crunched beneath her feet as she traversed the rubble, covering the sidewalk in front of the once beautiful home. Only remnants remained, a few walls, a chimney. Furniture and personal belongings lay upturned as if a giant had tossed them around during a temper tantrum. The acrid scent of smoke hung in the air. Despite not knowing the homeowners, Sam shuddered as she imagined the terror they had endured. She turned to Brad, who stood beside her. He was the one guy besides her dad she could completely trust, but her dad couldn't protect her now, not now. You think it's safe out here? Brad kicked a rock and it skittered across the fractured concrete. Of course it's not, but it has to be here somewhere. Unless it's already left. She stared at Brad for a moment. None of the surrounding chaos seemed to bother him. He reminded her of his father in moments like this, but unlike Thomas, Brad had remained with her because he loved her. It shouldn't leave until it has absorbed all the negative energy from the aftermath of the earthquake, Brad hesitated. Besides, it doesn't know we're hunting it yet. Let it know. This time she would bind it and make it talk. She wouldn't be fooled again. Okay. I like this. We have a challenge. So she would bind it and make it talk. We know in this first page what her aim is. And now, will this be the whole aim of the story? Hard to say. Maybe this is the first chapter, but we know we have a character who wants something. She wants to bind this monster that we don't know much about yet and make it talk. That's great. That's a great way to start a story. Let's jump back up to the top here. Lost dog, the flyer read, an excuse, a disguise, a flimsy shield that Sam gripped tightly as if it could protect her from what really prowled the streets. Forgive my pronunciation here. The ground crunched beneath her feet as she traversed the rubble, covering the sidewalk in front of the once beautiful home. Okay, so I think, and again, quick caveat, everything I share in these videos are my opinion, my thoughts. I am a story editor, a line editor. I'm not generally a copy editor, though I will make those suggestions from time to time. So please take everything I say as a suggestion. It is your story. I'm talking to whoever actually sent this. When things are in quotation marks, especially at the start of a story when we don't have any context or anything, it does read as dialogue, right? And so since we're not going to say that this is someone speaking, I would probably do like a period and do just italics so that we're cueing people in that's not someone saying lost dog, but lost dog. And then you could say something like, that's what the flyer read, and an excuse, a disguise, a flimsy shield that Sam gripped tightly as if it could protect her. So I like that you get the her in here right after Sam, because Sam is one of those names that really can be, gender ambiguous. So you get the her here. So now we have a sense of gender identity, as if it could protect her from what really prowled the streets. The ground crunched beneath her feet as she traversed the rubble, covering the sidewalk in front of the once beautiful home. Okay, now I'm wondering, is there a way to give us a hint of what city we're in? And is it urban? I mean, it's a standalone home is how I'm reading this, so I'm guessing it's more suburban. And since there's a sidewalk, probably not country. But suburban, it looks a little different in different cities. So you can also start to give us hints with weather. If, for instance, it were snowing, we'd know it's not Los Angeles. It doesn't have to be super specific and on the nose right in these first lines, but think about ways where you might start to hint at what time of year is it? Where are we in the world? These little details that the reader's subconscious will start to catalog and keep track of as they're reading. So just look for some opportunities there. Like if it was fall, there might be leaves, like dead leaves falling in with the rubble. And also something like dead leaves kind of adds to the tone of something like this. So that's also another opportunity. You can always, if it's summertime, you can always make it more of like you can use words like scorched or, other words that kind of hint at an ominous something, even though the weather might be nice. So think about what time of year it is, what city this is, and how you might drop little hints about that in these first few lines. Just hints, just little hints. Only remnants remained, a few walls, a chimney. Furniture and personal belongings lay upturned. Okay, so now and I say this having just barely survived the LA fires last year, when I am picturing a house with just remnants remaining, I'm seeing a burned house. I don't know if that's what you're intending here. There are still a few walls, there's a chimney, there's furniture. So this actually isn't reading as a fire, but then there is the acrid scent of smoke. So I'm a little curious. I wonder if you could be more specific about what ruined this house. So when you say only remnants remain, I don't know exactly. I mean, I guess these are the remnants. Maybe this needs to be a colon. A few walls, a chimney. So like, make it like this. Furniture and personal belongings lay upturned as if a giant had tossed them around during a temper tantrum. To me, that doesn't read fire. But then you say the acrid smoke hung in the air. Now, maybe the house wasn't burned, but like this monster that they're tracking has that scent of acrid smoke. Like I've seen that in stories before. But you'll want to clarify that a little bit, because right now I'm having trouble picturing this house. Is it half burned, or has it been literally like torn apart by a monster that smells of smoke? You just don't want any confusion in this first page. And this is not a big edit. This is just, you can even just say, only remnants remained. The house hadn't been burned, but the furniture and personal belongings lay upturned as if a giant, you can, just a few words, even if they don't make sense yet, they give the promise that you're going to have it all come together and make sense. Or you could even take this opportunity, like the acrid scent of smoke hung in the air, out of place, since the house didn't seem to have been burned. Something like that. Like, tell us, where's the smoke coming from? Is it this monster, or is it that the house was burned? Since I don't know what you were intending, I'm actually not going to edit that. I will leave that for you to do on your own. Despite not knowing the homeowners, and here I might put in a break here. So we've said the house is all torn up, the acrid scent of smoke hung in the air. Despite not knowing the homeowners, Sam shuddered as she imagined the terror they had endured. So now we're kind of switching tone, right? She's switching into her memory of what kind of terror these people might have endured. She turned to Brad, who stood beside her. He was the one guy besides her dad she could completely trust, but her dad couldn't protect her now. Okay, so this is great, not now, because now I'm like, okay, gotta know what happened to dad. And these are the kinds of questions that you want to sprinkle into that first page, because humans don't like unanswered questions. And so they will keep turning the page because they want to know what happened to dad, right? So that's a great way to kind of tease out that question. When you have some dialogue, it's always best to have a new line. You think it's safe out here? Brad kicked a rock and it skidded across the fractured concrete. Then, of course not. Of course it's not. But it has to be here somewhere. So the double use of it here is a little confusing. So you might just say, of course not. Of course not. But it has to be here somewhere. That way there's no confusion, because one it is something and then the other it is something else. Of course not. But it has to be here somewhere. Unless it's already left. Okay, so this is Brad, and then she's talking, and then this is Brad again. And so if that was her talking, I might leave it there. But since we come back to her, so it's him, it's her, it's him again. And then we have she. So she stared at Brad for a moment. Now consider here, you have these opportunities where the characters look at each other, where you might tell us something about what Brad looks like. I mean, Brad in particular is a name that really can go a lot of ways. So she stared at Brad. What does Brad look like? Don't go into a long description here, but give us a few words. Like, what's the first thing she notices when she's like, do his blue eyes look scared, or is his long dark hair messed up from having not slept or something? Like there's opportunity here to give us a hint, or even if she has to like look up, you could tell us that Brad was really tall, right? There are always ways to start to drop the hints of like, what do these characters look like? Because in your head, they're real people. In my head, they're just Sam and Brad, and I know nothing about them yet, except that they're afraid of this monster. I don't know how old they are. I mean, I know they're male and female, but that leaves a lot of room for interpretation in my brain. That is an opportunity for you to fill in and tell me what they look like. She stared at Brad for a moment. None of the surrounding chaos seemed to bother him. He reminded her of his father. This tripped me up when I was reading it through the first time too. He reminded her of his father in moments like this. The he, her, his. You might say, instead of he reminded her, just say something like, he was so much like his father. He was so much like his father in moments like this. But unlike Thomas, Brad had remained with her because he loved her. Now, I'm just going to ask the question. We've got the hint of father figure up here, right? With, he was the one guy besides Dad that she could trust, and Dad couldn't protect her, not now. And then I might wait to introduce another dad, because right now you've got Brad and Sam and a mention of Sam's dad, but that's a really manageable number of characters for a reader to start to take in. When we start throwing in another, like the fourth character, I mean, again, it is the dad, but then you've got two dads. So I wonder, is it important that we introduce Thomas right now? Or could that wait a little bit? Even if you said he was so much like his father in this moment, but even then, like, we've already gotten a dad into this first page. I would, if it were me, I would probably use this page real estate to just describe Brad and say, like, okay, so none of the surrounding chaos seemed to bother him. His hair was perfectly combed, and tell us, like, his long dark hair was perfectly combed. And he, like, what's he wearing, right? Is he wearing like athletic wear? Is he jeans and a t-shirt guy? Is he in a suit? Like, you can imagine how each of those characters is a very different character. And just by telling us what he's wearing, you can cue us into what kind of guy is Brad. And then wait to bring in Brad's father, just so that you kind of adjust the reader to the characters who are already on the page before we ask them to remember too much. All right. So I might change this. I'm just going to put a description of Brad here instead of the dad. Again, these are suggestions. It's your story. And then, so this is with her. So I'm assuming this is her talking. It shouldn't leave until it has absorbed all the negative energy from the aftermath of the quake. Okay, but then it says Brad hesitated. So this is Brad talking. So I'm going to say, Brad met her stare and, okay, wait, I have to review here. So this is Brad, Sam stares at him, Brad, and continue. You could even just say Brad continued. Just make sure if it's not super clear who's talking, tell us, right? You could also do like, so the other way you could do this would be, it shouldn't leave until it absorbed all the energy, or like, this would be the other option, would be, it shouldn't leave, Brad continued, not until it has absorbed all the negative energy. Like, that would be the other way to do it. Dealer's choice, whatever feels more natural to you in your writing style. Again, we just want to make sure it's really clear who is saying what. So you think it's safe out here? Brad kicked a rock. It skidded across the factory concrete. Of course not, but it has to be here somewhere, unless it's already left. She stared at Brad for a moment. None of the surrounding chaos seemed to bother him. Short description of Brad. It shouldn't leave, Brad continued, not until it has absorbed all the negative... Oops, I put that in the wrong place. Not until it has absorbed all the negative energy from the aftermath of the... And, you know, having been in a few earthquakes, it's probably... People tend to say quake. Now, I don't know Brad very well yet, but consider that the aftermath of the quake is how I would expect someone, at least if they're like used to the idea of earthquakes, we tend to shorten that word. Brad hesitated. And since we just did, Brad continued, you might not need this unless it's important. Like if it is important that there's a pause there, maybe have him look up at the house or do something. But I always like to get the attribution in pretty quickly because you don't want people having to read a couple lines and then go back and figure out who's talking. You want it right up front. It shouldn't leave, Brad continued, not until it has absorbed all the negative energy from the aftermath of the earthquake. Besides, it doesn't know we're hunting it yet. And then since we kind of switch back into Sam here, let it know. This time she would mind it and make it talk. She wouldn't be fooled again. So you can see how we kind of chunking up this dialogue by who is saying what, or if there's nothing said, giving Sam a chance to just kind of like stare at Brad and be like, wait, what's going on? And this is a killer for end line for a first page because again, knowing what this character wants right off the bat, it also, even though we haven't, like up here, we don't know exactly what it is. We know there's something scary, protect her from what really prowled the streets. Again, it would be helpful to know the city because this is clearly reading as supernatural, but you could make that even more concrete if it was like, let me think of a good example, like prowling the streets. Like on my morning walks, I often come across coyotes because I live in Los Angeles, and some people are really freaked out by them. And just the idea that they're prowling the streets is like looms for them, right? And I'm guessing from the rest of this that this is something much scarier than a coyote. And so giving a little more context of like what city we're in, is this the only house that has been upturned? What is the weather like? What season is it? Just look for opportunities to drop a few more details in here. And I think it'll make it that much richer and that much more engaging. But this is a great first page. It's off to a great start. And I would be very curious to know if Sam is successful in her mission or not. All right, so that's our first page Friday. Thank you again to the author who sent in their first page. And if you would like to send in your first page, check out the show notes below. There's a link where you can send yours in and we'll put it in the queue and we will, one of these days, we'll edit your first page. Thank you, everybody. Happy writing. I'll see you next time.